All right. Got it fixed up a little bit. Giving this a try, man. I swear to God, it gets hotter than Africa over here, man. When your devices start to fry, the Wi-Fi disconnects. It gets so hot, bro. It's like literally like you feel like you're melting. Like look at me right now. You could see that I'm sweating ferociously. You feel me? I'm sweating ferociously, man. The devices that you use is getting burnt. It's like, yo, you could cook food on top of these devices that I'm using. Real talk. If you put an egg out here, this joint and be fried. You could cook eggs right here. That's how hot it is, bro. Like literally. Like, son, look. I mean, look. I don't know. I'm gonna show you. You could just see. You see that all sweat. You know, just dripping sweat, son. you know. But we had Hoop Facts up in here. I had technical difficulties while he was up in here. We was into a good conversation. But things went haywire a little bit. You know, but yeah, man. Back to this talk. Who is the best player in basketball for you right now? If it's not Giannis Antetokounmpo anymore, then who is it? If you have to pick one, you know, you can't pick the Durants and LeBrons. Damn all them stats by LeBron. He didn't even make the play-in, or even, he was on a bad team. Didn't make the playoffs. You can't pick LeBron. You know, you can't pick Kevin Durant because he flamed out. Giannis played better than him. You know, so who could you possibly get? Who could you possibly pick? You can't pick none of these four guys. Don't tell me Jason Tatum, if he wins a championship, he's the best individual player in basketball. No, I'm not going with that. You may be on the best team. You know, there has been teams that just had so much overwhelming talent, or they had good pieces to work together as a team, and they've been able to win the championship. You know, you can't tell me Dirk or Jason Terry was the best player in the world in 2011. No, just because they won the championship. You know, was Kawhi the best player in basketball in 2014 just because he won Finals MVP? No. Was Andre Iguodala the best basketball player in the world because he won Finals MVP? No. Was he the best player on the Warriors because he won Finals MVP? No. So it's like straight like that, you know. So you could still say Giannis is the best player in basketball. Now here's when you hit a roadblock. Here's when you hit that roadblock. That roadblock gets hit when you look at how they lose. A lot of these guys not losing in the format when you say, hey, he was the most dominant basketball player on the floor. His team just wasn't good enough. They were up 3 games to 2. So they had 2 opportunities to close out this team. 2. Not one, but 2 opportunities to close them out. And you have to take burden and blame on that. You can't lose in that fashion and not have people call you out on it. Because if Giannis had won, you would have said he's the best player in basketball. Everybody would have said that. You, me, and their whole grandmother, their whole family would have said Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best player. Now, if Luka wins the championship, does that make him a top 5 player, a top 6? Maybe, yeah. That may catapult him to being a superstar, but that will not catapult him to being the best player in basketball. Luka is not the best player in basketball, bro. Even if he wins a championship this year, he won't be the best player in basketball. What he will be, though, is competing with Giannis for best player and of this generation, because it's an arms race. You can't just give it to one player and say that's the be all, the end all to it. You know, so we have to put that in perspective. Now, have you seen what happened with the Phoenix Suns? All right, a heavily favored team, and they end up losing. Now people are going to come on them and call them frauds. Everybody's going to look at the Phoenix Suns and say, hey, they're a regular season team. They're frauds. They're not really as good as their record says they are. And they're giving a shame to the regular season. Because now you make the regular season look bad. Now you got the regular season looking stupid because you got teams that people could you know, you could win such. Seedings don't matter no more. What matters now? You could score 50 points and be called the MVP. The next guy could score 60 and be called the MVP. You could score 45 and be called the best player in basketball of all time. Nothing matters now. Everything is like being, you know what I'm saying? Everything is like being pretty much catapulted to like overhypeness. We put too much stock and we lose these words too loosely. Everybody's a superstar now. It was a little more balanced back in the day. Everything was balanced. Now everything's all out of whack. This season is whacked. You can't trust anything in this season. Now, what are we doing here? We can't trust anything. You got role players being called all-stars. You got all-stars being called superstars. You got superstars being called GOAT without winning. What's going on here, man? What's going on here? Now, I said Giannis was the most dominant player in basketball. Is that good enough to say he's the best player in basketball? In certain aspects, yeah, but you're still going to have to be able to overcome his flaws. Giannis needs to improve his game. There's no but ifs about it. The criticism that I keep giving this guy about him closing games out and be a better offensive player is going to show up. It's going to come to fruition. And he's going to have to show up. He's going to have to close these games out. So it is what it is on that aspect, you know. So the question is who I got as the best player in basketball. I may have to say Giannis by default. I may have to keep saying that by default, you know. Come next season, what are we going to get? Should it be a fresh start come next season? There should be no best player headed into the season, next season. Because everything starts from zero again at this point. Because everything was so indecisive, you know. But the NBA got a lot of people looking like bandwagon fans because everybody keep jumping from one player to the next. You don't know who to put stock into, you know. So I'm gonna even start refraining from calling players the best player in basketball. Because if Luka wins, he still won't be the best player in basketball for me. We don't even know what's gonna happen to him in the third round. What if the Warriors blow this dude out? What if they run him off the basketball court? What then? Is he still the best if that happens? You know? So we got to put that stuff in perspective, man. Yeah, this is crazy. A team that wins 60 wins in a regular season get knocked out in the second round. Chris Paul legacy takes a hit. Kevin Durant legacy takes a hit. How many guys in the league right now is really the real deal? How many of them? You can't say it's LeBron. They didn't make the playoffs. You can't say Kevin Durant. He got taken out in the first round. And it's not about winning and losing all the time. It's how you win and how you lose. You could still say Giannis was the best player in basketball if he lost in a certain way, in a certain fashion. Now, I give him credit for taking a lot of shots. He took 30 shots in game 6? Game 7, he took 26 shots, but only got 25 points on 26 shots. I think Kevin Durant get like 40 off 19 sometimes. If he had some impact like that, you was really killing him, then it had been a complete different story. You know, you guys keep looking at stats all the time. They don't tell the whole story. Stop being brainwashed by stats. Stop looking at stats and be like, okay, you know, this dude is the best because I looked at the stat sheet, and the stat sheet tells me he's the best. Nah, man, it don't go that way, bro. There's levels to this. There really is levels to this. You know? So, with that being said, where could I rank Giannis? By default, I may have to still say he's the best player in basketball because is Luka better than Giannis? Are you willing to pit Luka above Giannis? Are you willing to pit Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler. I mean, Jimmy Butler would never be called the best player in basketball. He don't fit that criteria. He's not consistent enough. Jason Tatum is showing up in the playoffs, but he got to do this consistently. Salute my man, but G Money ain't here yet. Oh, okay, okay. Salute to you too, my brother. You know, but shout out to G Money, by the way. Anyway, you know, Kobe fan, what you think of this year's playoffs? Who you got as the best player in basketball? Because it seems like it keeps constantly switching. I don't think nobody can make up their mind. It's so indecisive. Nobody could really say who's the best player in basketball because these guys are so inconsistent. One minute a guy looks like the best player in basketball, the next minute he don't. Then you move the momentum to another player. We got to keep. We don't know. And oh, there you go. At least we got one person that's still sticking to his guns. Remember, when Jordan was losing in 1989, 1990, I still had him as the best player in basketball because you got to take some days inconsistent. Jordan was playing in 1989. Jordan was on the 5th seed. The Pistons won 60-plus games in 1989. They were clearly the better team. They had over 4 All-Stars. It was Michael Jordan and a bunch of role players. None of those guys were developed then. Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen, the B.J. Armstrongs, the John Paxson, none of them guys was developed, you know? You know, I'm still saying it's Giannis by default as well. I got Giannis by default, Kobe fan. Keyword, default. Because he still got some flaws that need to be corrected. His offensive game needs to be corrected. Here's the thing about Giannis. Picture this. Imagine this. Picture this. Imagine if I ruled the world and everything in it, sky's the limit. I put your Q45 infinite. You know what I'm saying? I had to quote that Nas right there. If you give Giannis an offensive-minded player, a Dame Dollar, a guy that could close games, the Milwaukee Bucks will be in the NBA Finals almost every year. Because their biggest problem is finding a guy to close games out. Giannis is dominant, but he got the Shaq syndrome. Shaq needed Kobe. Salute, Nets world. Shaq needed Kobe. More than Kobe needed Shaq. Kobe still could have won championships without Shaq because he had the offensive skill set to close games out. All he needed was a secondary Scottie Pippen, Paul Gasol. But Shaq, nah. Shaq needed the Anthony Hardaways. Shaq needed the Kobe Bryant. Even if he was called the best player in basketball, Shaq still needed somebody to close those games out. So this is why I say, even if you paired Shaq with LeBron, LeBron had problems closing. You had two guys that can't close games out. So Shaq and Kobe, Shaq and LeBron wouldn't even be a big-time championship winning team. Let's just say they go off and win one. But we've seen what LeBron James do with super teams. He underachieves. So he wouldn't win a lot of championships, even with Shaq. Because who was going to be that guy in the fourth quarter to close games out with the offensive skill set? That's needed. That's important. Now, Shaq and Jordan would have won like 10 championships. They would have won a lot. I wouldn't know who would you call the capo of that team, but they would have won a lot. Yeah, man. You know, so this is how you to go about proving that you understated Kobe's value. Kobe was just as important to the Lakers as Shaq was. This was a 1A, 1B situation for the most part. We didn't look at that in hindsight when Shaq was on the team. We kind of shoved Kobe under the rug. We kind of disrespected Kobe. And to this day, we didn't give Kobe the props that he deserved to be, deserved to have it. Even I'm guilty of that. I would man up and say, maybe I didn't give Kobe the props that he deserved, you know? Because if you look on the stat sheet, it don't look too well, right? You got a lot of these analytic guys that stats. But Kobe didn't play for stats. Kobe was a guy that played to win. Oh, yeah. That's true. That's true. And he did close that game out in the finals. But here's the thing about Giannis, though, Kobe. He don't do it consistently enough. How many times have I been on here on live streams, on videos that I posted, and saying these guys bailed Giannis out? If it wasn't for Drew Holiday, if it wasn't for Chris Middleton, if it wasn't for Brook Lopez, guys scoring and hitting time shots for Giannis. Because Giannis can't do it. He's getting offensive fouls. He's running into people. You know? You know? I think we was a little too harsh on Kobe. And you know why? Let's keep it real. Let's be honest. Why a lot of people was hard on Kobe Bryant. It was because he was a threat because he was copying Michael Jordan. He wasn't that original. He was copying Mike, and that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. This had a lot to do with Michael Jordan because he was the guy that's closest to Michael Jordan in skill set. That's why. That's true. That's true. But KD was always suspect right now, Kobe fan, because he had more than enough talent to win the championship, and he froze. He let Russell Westbrook take over a team for him. He was a yes man for Russell Westbrook. He was a yes man for Kyrie Irving. Kevin Durant wanted to go to the New York Knicks, but no, he had to listen to Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving said, "No, you go to the Nets because I'm coming to the Nets." You followed people around like a dog. You got your ass beat by the Golden State Warriors, and instead of coming back like a real man and beating that team, you go and join them. You could have went to any team in the league, but you had to go to the Warriors. You had to go to the Warriors. You could have went to any team. Think about that. You could have went to any team in the NBA. Shout out to Hoop Facts, by the way. Join me on the live stream. You know, hopefully he could come back because I got things cooking and fixed now. But damn all of that. Oh, okay. Now Kobe did had to he had to earn his right to be called a great player, and that's okay. That's okay. But when Kobe peaked and hit his prime around 2002 and 2003, there was no doubt that this man was the top five best player in the game, right? There was no doubt he was the alpha and the number one on his team playing alongside Paul Gasol. He didn't need that much help to get the job done. Rather, he played with a broken finger or a messed up knee. He was a warrior. And I got to give him props for that because I love his legacy and I love what he brought to the game. But you don't see guys like LeBron getting that criticism. I don't see nobody sitting there saying, you know, LeBron, he just was unstoppable. He just had the eye of the tiger, man. He just wanted it bad. Nobody would say that about him. You just say, hey, it's fun to play with LeBron James. You know, if you get a LeBron James documentary, they won't have that same energy and views as they view a Kobe or a Jordan. When you got guys that say, man, Mike never, even though we beat Mike, he never quit on us. But if you look at LeBron, guys like the Boston Celtics be like, yeah, we made that boy quit. We made him run up out of there. It's a different type of energy, right? You know? But Michael Jordan's most biggest haters, most biggest critics, never said he quit. Never said he his body language was that of a guy that just wants to quit. You know? They got a better legacy. No, If I'm a basketball player in the NBA and I'm a superstar, I never want to be known as a quitter. I'm sorry, I don't never want that label put on me. I'd rather go out blasting, empty in the chamber. I don't care. Even if I'd rather take 50 shots in the game and have no effect and put the team on my back. And if we lose, we lose. Then saying, "Oh man, you could have did more." You know, I'd rather have that. Kobe didn't care about a field goal percentage. If he did, he could have stat padded. He could have averaged a triple double. He had games where he 9 triple doubles in a row. He could have did that for a whole season. But his winning would have took a hit. Because only when Giannis said it best. Giannis says when you focus on stats instead of winning, winning takes a back seat because you're so concerned with the stats that it's hard to maintain that level of, oh, I got to keep a 50% scoring average. I got to keep my PER up. I got to keep my advanced stats metrics up. Nowadays, they got a stat for everything in basketball. There's a stats for just about everything. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem. So just because Giannis lost, I'm not going to sit there and say he's not, he still ain't by default the best player in basketball for me. Now, he does get some blame because we can't let him go off scot-free, right? He can't go off scot-free. They were up 3-2. They had 2 opportunities to close the game out, but their biggest flaws was they wasn't rebounding and they wasn't playing that much good defense. They couldn't get stops. And that's the whole thing all on the team. All right? Now, Giannis is on that team, so he got to get blamed. He got to get a percentage of that blame. Because if he won, what would we be saying about Giannis? This would be a different live stream. You'd be saying Giannis is blah, 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 blah. Right? So we got to keep that same energy like the young cats say. We got to keep it moving in that format. So a lot of stuff that I'm going to cook on, especially on my other channel about Kendrick Lamar. That he's become one of the most overrated artists right now. I got to cook on that. Yeah, which is devastating. Don't you hate that guy that do that? He take a lot of shots to be like, yeah, we got this game. Then all of a sudden, the fourth quarter comes, he get hot. Then you start to get that fear pump up in your heart. Kobe Bryant struck fear in people. Okay, Michael Jordan struck fear in people. People were afraid of Michael Jordan. That's why they respect him so much. Even the Detroit Pistons was like, we're doing everything we can to beat up on this guy. And he's still coming back for more. LeBron would not come back for more. LeBron would have frozen up. LeBron would have waved the white flag and sat on that bench. But Mike said, hey, give me more. He was still able to imagine how much championships Jordan would have had if he had the likes of a James Worthy, a Kareem. Keep in mind, those teams in the 80s, even the 76ers, some people argue the 76ers was the first ever quote-unquote super team because they had Moses Malone. And Moses Malone put them over the top because that team was a deadly team already. They were already a championship contending team with just Dr. J in those pieces. Then you add Moses Malone, they ran the gauntlet. They won the championship first year. The Bulls were not a threat in the 80s. The 76ers was. The Pistons was. The Lakers was. The Celtics was. From a team perspective, they were loaded. And it wasn't because of no super team and player-generated super teams. It was just because those guys were drafted and they were developed. The Bulls had their draft picks, but these guys weren't great out the gate. Scottie Pippen was a role player when he got drafted. It took him some time to become Scottie Pippen. It took Horace Grant some time to develop into a great player. Development, man. But Michael Jordan was great out the gate. He was an all-star out the gate, and he became a superstar by 1988. But he'll be sitting on a lot. Who knows how many chips he'd be sitting on if you gave him that same amount of talent. Are you kidding me? Detroit Pistons had over 4 all-stars with Dantley. Dantley was one of the best scorers in the 80s. Then you had Rick Mahorn, enforcer. Bill Laimbeer, enforcer. The microwave, Vinnie Johnson. Shall I go on? Dennis Rodman was an all-star on the Pistons. That's the only time he was an all-star, when he was on the Pistons. That Detroit Pistons team, as I said in my video, was the Golden State Warriors. Before the Golden State Warriors, but just more on the defensive end. Hear me out a little bit. Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars are the only backcourt in the NBA history to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Who's going to break that record? The Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson and Steph Curry will be in the Hall of Fame. A backcourt duo in the Hall of Fame. They will break that record. Similar to Detroit Pistons. Draymond Green was their defensive player for the Warriors. Dennis Rodman is their defensive player for the bad boy Detroit Pistons. Only difference was Dennis Rodman was a real enforcer, a real defensive player, because he was guarding the best players. This is the same guy that guarded Shaq, same guy that guarded Mike, same guy that guarded Magic, Bird. Getting under everybody's skin, giving everybody the business, being physical, rough, in your face defense. If you play basketball, you know how hard it is to score on somebody when they're all up in your mug, all up in your grill, not giving you no space to breathe. So Rodman, Dumars, Isaiah equals Steph, Klay, Draymond. Then you get down to the supporting cast. The Warriors was a great defensive team, but the Pistons were a better defensive team. They had great spark off the bench with Iguodala, Dantley. All right? Look at these teams. They match up very evenly. They had almost the same amount bench power in terms of role players, and they had 3 legit guys that they ran the team to, right? Bill Laimbeer. You had Bogut. Now, Bill Laimbeer was better than Andrew Bogut. But without a doubt, Bill Laimbeer was better than Andrew Bogut because he was in the force. But you had Rick Mahorn. Rick Mahorn was a beast. He was a savage on the defensive end. He was an enforcer. He was an intimidator. A lot of people don't know about these guys. These were men. They were tough guys. It was Michael Jordan versus 4 all-stars, basically, and a whole team full of role players that were legit. Of course, they're going to zoom in and put their whole focus on Mike because they didn't believe in the rest of those guys to beat them. That didn't mean Isaiah Thomas and all them boys was better than Mike. Because Mike was matching Isaiah Thomas, Glock for Glock, shot for shot. So that's why I say that. So when you sit there and say, oh, the Warriors, before KD got to that Warriors team was on par. They won 72 games. They were on par with the bad boy Pistons. But the Pistons got 2 championships and managed to beat some of the best players to ever pick up a basketball. Jordan, Bird, Magic. Without no special effects, Floyd Mayweather style. The Warriors underachieved it because they needed Kevin Durant to win some more chips. You should have been able to win more chips with that club before Kevin Durant got there. You should have won in 2016. You already won in 2015. You wet the bed. You think Dennis Rodman, rather he missed the game and got suspended, would have wet the bed when he came back to play? He would have been locking up LeBron. He would have been giving LeBron problems. Even if LeBron did drop 40, Dennis Rodman still would have been a factor. Better rebounder, better defensive player. And he would have had some moments when he locked LeBron up. You kidding me? You guys don't realize that. The best teams in NBA history took place in the 80s. The 86 Boston Celtics. Are you kidding me? How great that team was? Bird Magic. Bird Parrish and fucking Kevin McHale. Jordan didn't have that in the 80s. Jordan team was organically great. They had to learn to become great. That's what made them so special. That's part of the reason what made him special. He didn't have to go to another team. He stuck with what he got and developed them boys. That's what made Mike special. The fact that he could lose and win. But when you lose, it's not how you lose. It's not about losing all the time. It's how you lose. It's not about how you win. It's how you win. This is the reason what people second guessing a lot of these players now. Why are you second guessing the Suns? Because how they lost. They got dominated. They got owned. They won 60 plus games. They were the best team in the Western Conference. And you go out like that? You lay an egg like that? Come on, man. Michael's Bulls never laid an egg like that if they win in 60 plus games, bro. Sorry. They either winning the championship or going to the final. You know? But you got these people want to compare LeBron to Jordan. And they fail to realize that LeBron didn't win the championship in the 2000s neither. Because it's a team game. But individually, Jordan was still performing better than LeBron James. Yeah, LeBron went to the finals earlier. But look at the competition. You beat two teams that were below 500. The only team that you beat that was above 500 was the Pistons. Then you got to the San Antonio Spurs. And the San Antonio Spurs didn't dominate the Cleveland Cavaliers. Look at those games and see how close they was. That's another story for another day. I got a video on that. I'm going to break that down pretty good too. So I'm not going to completely touch on that right now. But somebody told me Rajon Rondo is facing 15 years in prison or looking at 15 years in prison. Is that true? Let me know. He pulled a gun? Man, Rajon Rondo getting into that gangster-ish. But my last point before I head up out of here is there's morals and ethics to this day. You can't just be saying the guy's the best player just to make it trendy. Make a pick and believe in your pick. You know? Sometimes the best player comes up short. It happens. And it stop you from saying LeBron was the best player in some seasons. So it shouldn't stop you from saying Giannis is the best player in some seasons. And it stop you from saying Kobe's the best player for some seasons. And it stop you from saying Mike was the best player for some seasons, even though they didn't win the championship. So we got to keep it on that level, right? One thing's for sure, two things for certain. Luka ain't the best player in the game. Jason Tatum ain't the best player in the game. Jimmy Butler ain't the best player in the game. Who else? The closest you got that merits a resume of it is Steph Curry. Steph Curry could stash the title up because he got the resume to do it. But the rest of these guys don't. They don't get the resume to do it. They don't get the accolades to back it up. Steph do. Steph missing the finals MVP. Steph missing the right to be called truly the best player on his team and win the championship. Don't let somebody steal your glory. Now is your moment, Steph. Now is your moment. There's nothing but air and opportunity stopping you from winning another ship. You can have championship number 4 coming your way. That's real talk. You know, I didn't get a chance to really dive in on what Chi-Town was saying because my Wi-Fi was messing up and I had problems hearing. But ask yourself this: 1989. You said Isaiah Thomas outplayed Michael Jordan? It was more like the Detroit Pistons outplayed Michael Jordan. You're forgetting who was on that team. You can't sit there and say, oh, the Lakers was favorites to beat the Pistons. It doesn't matter because the Pistons was just as good as the Lakers. They won 63 games. They were just as dominant as the Lakers. They had multiple All-Stars. The Lakers had multiple All-Stars. But you know who didn't have multiple All-Stars? Michael Jeffrey Jordan. It'll be a different story if Mike was playing with Moses Malone with that roster. Then they might have won because Mike had a secondary guy to depend on. Moses Malone was one of the best players in the 80s. Moses Malone was a beast. A lot of you guys don't understand these great players. You overlook some of these great players. But the 80s was stacked to the top of the deck with great players. You had to have a great team to win. But you had to have a great team to win a championship in any era of basketball. It's not just about the superstar. You need your number two. Batman needs Robin. Because when he's stuck and he almost about to get got, Robin got to come to help him out sometimes. Right? He could do most of the heavy lifting, Batman, but he still need Robin. But some of these teams in the 80s had Batman, they had a Superman, and they had Spider-Man sprinkled on top. That was the difference. Let me get out to my shout out. Shout out to Kobe fans. Shout out to Nets World. Shout out to Hoop Facts. You know, I promise you, next time I come on live, I'm going to have a better connection. Because I like doing my live outside because I have, if you see the group of people I'm at, we mob deep. I can't do a live stream with like 20 people around me. I can't get time to concentrate. I can't think of what I'm going to say if there's too much distraction. But we're going to fix that. We're going to fix that on the live next screen. You know? Because me and Hoop Facts, we was cooking, man. We was breaking this thing down. But shout out to everybody. Shout out to Zach. Shout out to everybody. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.